We hear you. So many of you are watching our videos and commenting, this stuff would never work in Silver. You can't predict those players. And that's what we like to do at SkillCapped. We like to analyze pro players and high-ranked demons so we can improve and learn something from them. However, we do get hundreds of comments that say, this only works in pro play, or this doesn't work in Silver because players are simply unpredictable. When we watch high-ranked players, we need to think, how can I replicate this in my games? And not fall under the trap that you can't replicate it because of what rank you're in. So we got an Immortal player to go on a Gold Smurf account to see if he could predict these players. And the results might not be what you think. Also, remember, if you're struggling in these lower ranks, chances are you've been getting bad advice from players that just don't understand your elo like we do. In elo hell, you can't play the same way you'd play in higher ranks, and that's why most standard high elo advice doesn't seem to work for you. Sometimes you're gonna need to break the rules. That's why, over at SkillCapped.com, we teach you not only how to break the rules of Valorant, but how to get away with it too. So what are you waiting for? Click that link below, and we'll see you there. I want to start this video with simple plays that trigger certain responses. There are certain abilities or plays in Valorant that allow you to make educated guesses on what your next best move is. An example of this would be Chamber Op. You can tell if a chamber has their op ready by clicking tab, or if they're highlighted yellow at the top of the player feed. But did you know you can tell if he used ult in the pre-round? If Chamber has a blue glow around his icon during the buy phase, that means he popped his ultimate before the round started. If you see this, you can predict where he's gonna play. And this exact scenario happened in our gold lobby.
Alright, well if you look at the top, Chamber's player icon is blue, which means he already popped his ult, which means we probably shouldn't go C or A. Yo, you guys wanna go B? Their Chamber's opping.
B, okay.
B? Wait, Chamber's offing? That's fine. Let's go. Let's go C. Come on.
Okay, well our Chamber wants to alpha him.
Let's play.
Oh my
That's why
god.
we go B.
This guy's weird.
Our Immortal noticed Chamber was opping and was predicting that Chamber would either hold A long or C long. He communicates this to his team, then adapts by trying to set up a B side take. However, his Chamber wanted to go C, and then died from one of the exact locations we said Chamber would be opping. This is the most simple but very real example of predicting the enemy team and adapting to the other team's play. This also shows he was able to use his game sense to predict even gold players. Contrary to what many people may say in the comments, gold players are some of the easiest players to predict, and that is because they don't really think much about how to counter what you're doing. Immediately, what many of you are probably thinking is, couldn't Chamber have been opping on B or Garage? And honestly, yeah, he could have, but these sightlines just aren't as good as the ones on A and C, so it's just far less likely. Something else worth mentioning is even if he had posted up on B, the odds of us dying to him were significantly lower, given how much easier it is to close space in the middle of the map. You still need to take precautions in these situations, and use your utility safely to gather info. But in this situation, as expected, you'll notice the enemy Chamber made one of the most predictable choices he could have made, which made it super easy for us to adapt. Do keep in mind though, good players are constantly checking the ultimates available and the enemy team's economy at the start of the round. Great players, however, are the ones who know what to do with that information to set themselves up for success. If the other team's on a low buy, you should focus on playing longer ranges. It lessens the chance of your team losing a round on an eco because you're avoiding the classic right clicks, the frenzy spray downs, and the worsts of them all, the shorties. Let's take a peek at the Smurf game and see how he deals with a low buy from the other team.
Alright, so now that I'm looking at their comp, looking at how they're playing right now, I think as long as we just stick together, we don't really need a default because they don't have a molly, right? They have shock darts and stuns, but what we have to worry about is the two off angle agents. So if you go short, just
Where are we going?
Let's go A again.
I'm gonna come with you guys this time. I've been looking up low.
He starts by holding tab to look at the eco. He now knows the other team is on an eco. Something to keep in mind is the enemy team can't really be that unpredictable on an eco. They could potentially try to 5-man stack an area of the map to catch you off guard, but as long as you're gathering info safely and not just running into close areas mindlessly, you should probably be fine. For example, if a team only has 2,000 credits each, what are their options for guns? If they force, maybe they'll have a sheriff or marshal, which are okay at range, but aside from that, all the guns they can afford are close range weapons, meaning they can only really perform a handful of plays, all of which revolve around them being close enough to kill you. This is why Lucas tells his team to drone short and KO takes long. Then he's smoked. And I want you guys to take just a few seconds and think, what would you do here? Maybe you'll knife to see if anyone's in the smoke, or maybe molly the smoke so nobody is in it. But our Immortal player does something most players don't think of. He decides to flash in the smoke and catches the Omen full blind with a shorty. But how did he know that someone was in the smoke? Well, he didn't. He just made a smart guess based on the info he had. He knew they were on a low buy, which means shotguns and close range gunfights. And by adapting where he flashes, he was able to punish the Omen for being predictable with a shorty. His molly and knife could have been potentially used to clear the Omen out as well, but the main thing here is it was incredibly obvious this Omen was playing near the smoke. There are two major tells that let you know exactly what the Omen is doing, and that would be 1, his economy only allows him to make close range plays. 2, his smoke was placed pretty early on in the round, signifying it wasn't really a reactive smoke, it was more proactive. He was desperate to place the smoke because he needed it to make a play. Valorant is all about adapting your gameplay by using the information given to you. KO was being given information that this Omen was close. All he had to do was use that information to his advantage. Players that say, "This doesn't work in my elo," are just not seeing the common patterns that happen in a match. Most players have certain playstyles, and they rarely change it up. Chambers like tripping the same spot, or a Sky likes to flash out the same spot. Smart players will notice these habits or playstyles mid-game and punish the players who are being predictable. Perhaps part of the reason you struggle to predict players is because you're not giving yourself enough information to work with. One concept not really talked about enough is limiting variables when you're trying to predict players. When a round starts, there are 10 players on the map. All of them have unique abilities and they can be anywhere on their side of the map. That means there are many variables or situations that could happen. So predicting exactly what'll happen is pretty difficult. Now, comparing this situation to a 2v2 with the spike planted, there are less people on the map, you know they have to defuse or defend the spike, you also know exactly what abilities are possible for you to encounter, and how to prepare for them. This situation is a little easier to predict, because there are way less things that are possible. You can't get hit with a Brimstone ultimate if Brimstone is dead, and you can't get KO flashed if you're in a 1v1 versus Jet. You see what we mean? The less variables you have to deal with, the easier you'll be able to make correct decisions in your own matches. Now, this does not mean you have to bait your teammates to be the last one alive so you can clutch every time. Although if you truly are better than your rank, you should be able to win most of your 1v1s. You just have to be smarter in a 5v5 because you don't have all the information yet. If you don't have information, use your team's available utility to gather that information safely. Flash your early corners, use your drones, so you can start figuring out what is even possible for the enemy team. Once you know what's possible, you can quickly start to figure out what the right decision is. Great players aren't just luckier than you, or just better guessers than you. They limit the variables and catch on to patterns to make educated guesses on what could happen next. And no one said you had to be right all the time, because even the smartest players can't predict everything. If you get outplayed, or if someone does something you would have never predicted, instead of blaming the play on the rank, try to think of it as a learning opportunity. So then you can adapt when it happens again.
That's all we got for our video today, but remember that if you're really looking to improve at Valorant, I highly recommend checking out SkillCapped.com. We get it, you're just a player trying to get better at the game. That's why you're watching this video in the first place. You're capable of hitting that rank you deserve, but there's no shame in asking for a little help. At SkillCapped.com, we spend hours going through viewer-submitted replays to let you know all the mistakes that you're making. We also couple this with our Smurf commentaries to show players that it is possible to carry themselves out of whatever rank they're stuck in. It might seem hopeless at times, but trust me when I say we can help you out. All you have to do is check out SkillCapped.com. Link in the description below.